There it is, son. We are live Lions fans. As we said last week, we are back to talk about the Lions 2023 roster. We want to give our final rankings. If you are live with us over on Twitter or YouTube, go ahead and give it a like. Other than that, let's get right into it. All right, son. As you mentioned last week, we thought it would be fun to go over the roster and give our final grades and maybe some upgrades that can happen to the roster. Let's just get right into it, son. Let's start with special teams. We usually do special teams last, but let's start with special teams. As you see right there on the screen, our punter Jack Fox, kicker Michael Badgley, long snapper Jake McQuaid, and then our returners Raymond Dorsey, Reynolds, and Peoples Jones. What is your grade and what is your thoughts on the special team players?
Um, Overall, I'd have to give the special teams. No, I'd give them a B plus. I don't know if Jack Fox. I mean, for the most part, his punts were pretty good. I guess he averaged about 46.4 yards per punt. So, I mean, that put him like top 15 in the league. I guess. So, I don't know if that was a little more down for him. But yeah, I would give him a B plus so far because Khalif Raymond, he also had a pretty good season this year until I don't know what game he got hurt in, but and we didn't really see much of Donovan Peoples Jones, but I would say Khalif Raymond kind of he did enough for all of them, to be honest. And I can't. Oh, I forgot about the Money Badger, and I thought he did pretty good for the most part. I know there was that controversy with Dan Campbell not taking him for that 45-yard kick, but for the most part, I thought he was pretty good. And I'm pretty sure he was with us at the end of last year too. And I thought he
He
improved
was.
from how he was from then. So, I mean, I feel like we could resign him, even though some people think we need to get a kicker in the draft. So,
Okay. I'm actually going to give them a solid B as well. Jack Fox has been one of the best in the business for the last few years. As far as kick returners, I felt that Khalil Dorsey did a decent job returning kicks. I didn't think that Donovan Peoples Jones did as good of a job on in returns. We saw him when we were at the Buccaneers playoff game, and I felt that with Khalif Raymond out, that we were really missing something in the return game. As far as the kicking game, I don't know if it's Michael Badgley or if it's Dan Campbell, but I have to agree with some things I've heard. If we can't put a kicker out there who we think can make a 50-yard kick, especially in the playoffs, then it's time for us to get a new kicker or get a guy who can. You saw what happened in the Super Bowl when what's it Booter Bucker, the Chiefs kicker, kicked that 56 or 57-yarder. I mean, you have to have a kicker out there who you can trust to get out there and make those type of kicks. But I would give the special teams an overall B. Do you see any improvements that we need to make on special teams?
um, like some people said, I mean, maybe if that's a problem, then they could always get a kicker that they trust. And always if you can get a fast guy on the back end of the draft, I mean, you could always get a nice kick returner.
Well, that's true too, and and that could be something, or that we could look at, going forward, especially when we start talking about the draft. Okay, I'm going to move on to the offense. Let's start with quarterbacks. We have Jared Goff, who was the starter. He was backed up by veteran Teddy Bridgewater, and we have rookie Hendon Hooker, who was recovering from an injury. What is your grade and what is your thoughts on the quarterbacks?
I gotta be on. I gotta give him a good rating. I'd have to give him at least an A minus because Jared Goff did have a major improvement from last season. I'm pretty sure it was his best season ever. I mean, it had to have been. He had 67. He had a 67% completion. 67. Sorry, 67% completion rate on his passes. He got 30 touchdowns and 12 picks, and he had the second most passing yards in the league, like 100 yards behind Tua. And to be honest, his yards, I don't know how to say it, like his he attempts 7 yards per throw. So that's honestly higher, 7.6 yards per throw. So that's quite a bit higher than I actually thought it was, to be honest. So no, I'd have to give him an A minus. I mean, other than some overthrows, he honestly has been pretty sharp. And I would have to say he's probably, a top 10, top 12 quarterback in the league. So,
Okay, I'm going to give him a B plus. I think that he still misses throws sometimes that he should make. Sometimes he overthrows receivers, sometimes he underthrows, and sometimes he throws it behind. But for what it's worth, I do think that he is an arguable top 10, definitely a top 15 quarterback. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know where the Lions would go from here. I know we had a lot of discussion towards the end of the season about whether he should or shouldn't be resigned. But is like I've been saying, son, where are we going to go? If you don't resign Jared Goff, are you really going to put all your eggs in the Hendon Hooker basket? You're not, there's no free agent out there that you're going to get. I mean, are you going to bring, is Baker Mayfield going to be an upgrade? I mean, being serious, so it's pretty much Jared Goff. I would give him a B plus. I like Jared Goff, and I think that he can improve. And I think that 2024, especially with Ben Johnson still being in the mix, it could be good for Jared Goff. Let's move on to our running backs. We had the big two, David Montgomery, the solid rookie Jahmyr Gibbs, and we had the always solid Craig Reynolds. What is your grade and thoughts on the running backs?
uh, man, no, I'd have to give the running backs an A. I mean, to be honest, did Jahmyr Gibbs miss games? I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember. Oh, he didn't
He,
miss any games, did he?
for some reason, I want to say he missed the Ravens game, or maybe he didn't miss it. Maybe he just didn't play. Because this was at the earlier still in the season when they were kind of working him in, but it did seem like he missed a game,
Okay.
maybe one.
Well, my point is, honestly, on limited carries, he was in the top. I don't know what this is. The top, he was at least in the top 20 running backs for rushing yards. I mean, he had 945 rushing yards. I mean, that's not all yards. That's just rushing. And David Montgomery, he had 1,015 rushing yards. He was like in the top 12 area. So I would have to give him an A, and that kind of goes to show how good our offensive line was. But that also goes to show that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell know what they're doing because we really love Jamal Williams, but David Montgomery, if I'm not mistaken, is pretty young, and this is a Thunder and Lightning duo we should be able to keep for a long time now, and I can't see them slowing down. To be honest, Jahmyr Gibbs is only going to get better, and we don't need David Montgomery to really do any more than what he's already doing. He's been a reliable back for the most part, and I don't think he's fumbled. Oh, I guess he's fumbled twice, yeah, because I remember they said he's never fumbled, and then he did fumble that one game.
He sure did.
So, yeah, I'd have to give him an A or an A minus, I guess. No, I'd have to give him an A. I mean, they're the only two. I'm pretty sure they're the only two running back duo in the top 20 or the top 15.
I'm going to give him an A as well. I like what we have, and I like the fact that Jahmyr Gibbs is about to start taking over. I start to see it as the season went on that he's going to start to get more carries. But the good thing is that David Montgomery is still there. If I'm not mistaken, son, David Montgomery is 25. I want to say
That's what I was thinking too.
yeah. So he's still young. Jahmyr Gibbs is just about to go into his second year, and I still I don't know what we're gonna do at the 3 spot, but you know how I am, son. I have a soft spot for fringe NFL players. That's why I like players like Craig Reynolds, Jalen Reeves, maybe. And I have a soft spot for those guys. I like guys who scratch and claw and do the little things to stay in the league. So I wouldn't mind seeing Craig Reynolds stay. When he did get in, he did help out. So I will give our running backs an A. So okay, let's move on. I was talking and not watching my slides. So let's move on, son, to wide receivers. What is your thought and grade on the wide receivers?
Yeah. Well, I'd have to give them a B plus. And really, the only reason they wouldn't be an A is because Jameson Williams was hurt for those games. I mean, well, okay, I forgot about Josh. I'd have to give him a B plus. I don't want to do a range, so I'll give him a straight B plus, like a real high one, because Josh Reynolds, for the most part, was really reliable this season. I mean, literally up until the 49ers game, he wasn't dropping balls. I mean, he was going off the whole playoffs. And obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown, he had the third most receiving yards in the league on 1,500 yards. And to be honest, CeeDee Lamb was only ahead of him by 200 yards, but he had 20 more catches. So really, Amon-Ra St. Brown would have been the leader in that. And he had the third most touchdowns in the league too. He had 10 touchdowns. and he was up. I mean, really, he's a top 5 receiver. So we'll talk more about people are tripping about paying him 25 million, but I think we need to pay him whatever he wants to get paid because he honestly is one of the best receivers in the league. But we'll talk about that some other time. And we know that Jameson Williams started having a breakout season near the end of the season too. So yeah, I'd have to definitely give him a B plus. And Cleve Raymond is consistent as well.
Okay, so yeah, you took my grade. I was going to go with a B plus. A lot of that has to do with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's reliable. I've always called him a Jerry Rice clone in the fact that he doesn't drop passes. He quote isn't super fast, but he's definitely fast enough to get open. I would grade them higher if Jameson Williams was ready. If he played like he played the last few games and in the playoffs, I could give them an A. But I think that we have good things to come with Jameson Williams, what he showed us. I mean, they said at the beginning of the season, the issue was that in the OTAs and in the preseason and in training camp, he was dropping a lot of balls. But we saw at the end of the season, he was looking more like a possession receiver and he was catching big. As far as going forward, and I know we said we'll dig into this deeper, I still think that we could use a solid number 3. I love Khalif Raymond, but I think we could use a solid number 3 receiver. And I think that would definitely boost this receiving core up. All right, let's move to the tight ends. What was your thought and your grade on the tight ends?
Mm, I'd have to give the tight ends an A. I mean, that's simply because of Sam Laporta. I mean, I know we saw some of Brock Wright. I think we saw James Mitchell. Was he hurt?
He was hurt part of the season, but he was around here and there.
Yeah, I'd have to give him an A. I mean, Sam Laporta is, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, has to be a top 10 tight end in the league. And I think he's only going to go up from there. So, yeah, that's an easy one for me. I'd have to give him an A for sure.
Hey, I'm going A minus as well. I thought about B plus, but Sam Laporta had such a good season. He was as advertised. And when you and I did our show last week, when we talked about the redraft that somebody did on ESPN, I mean, they had him going in the first round. They said if we would have redrafted our 2 second round picks would have been first round picks. And I think that is just more things to come, in the future for Sam Laporta. As long as he can stay healthy, I think that we're going to be just fine at tight end. Let's move on to the O line. You see kind of how I put them in the order of, how they started. And then you have the 3 backups. What was your grade and thoughts on the O line?
Okay, this was a little more difficult. I I'd have to give the O line a B plus. And the reason is I don't think. I mean, yeah, I'd have to give him a B plus, mainly from the run game, just because for the most part, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs pretty much were always able to do what they needed to do. But I mean, there was no game in particular. I think that Jared Goff was just getting hit a ton. So yeah, I'd have to give him a B plus or A minus to be honest. I mean, I know there's one position that you said needed to be replaced. I don't
Right
remember.
guard. Yeah, I think we need to upgrade at right guard. With that said, I'm going to give the offensive line an A minus. I think that if we can get a right guard who is a dog, who doesn't get hurt, I think that the offensive line is already top 5. But I think that if we get that one more guy, we're going to be okay. Not to mention we have to re-sign Jonah Jackson, but we'll talk about that when we talk about upcoming free agents. And I think that Penei Sewell, because he's about to be into his, believe it or not, he's about to be into his 4th season.
Yeah.
Penei Sewell may be up now, being a first round pick. I think he might have a 5th-year option, if I'm not mistaken. But his time is coming. I think if we can keep the line together, we have an A level, offensive line, going forward. So overall, I think you and I had almost the same grades on everything except for the quarterback
Yeah.
position. The quarterback position might have been the only position that we had a different grade on, but still overall, I would say that our offense was still, pretty good. And I want to say that with Ben Johnson staying, I think that the offense is just going to be better in 2024. All right, let's move on to the defense.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering.
Yep. So let's start with the defensive line. What's your thoughts and what's your grade?
Oh, sorry, you have to give me 1 second. I didn't really look at the defense that much. Uh, okay, it's fine. I don't even need to look at that. You know, hmm, I have to give him. I had to give him a B minus. And, maybe that's being a little nice. I mean, that's really because Aiden Hutchinson, is the star of this defensive line. I mean, he's one of the. I mean, nah, yeah, he's one of the best defensive ends in the league. When it's used to think so.
I think I think as far as a straight DN he is. I wouldn't necessarily say as a pass rusher just yet.
Okay, yeah. I think that could change once he gets some more help. I mean,
Right.
there was at times where this defensive line looked really good, but I always had to argue I mean, I'm not trying to, always be a Debbie Downer, but I'd always had to argue the point that, maybe that was against bad defensive lines. Because once again, it's not like we weren't able to stop Lamar Jackson. So he was able to run around all over the place on us. So I mean, we were able to stop Patrick Mahomes though. So that's what I'm saying. The offensive line is just too iffy for me. So yeah, I'd have to give him a B minus.
Okay, I'm going with a C plus for the offensive line. I think that the only pass rush that we have without blitzing is Hutch. Josh Pascal began to show some flashes at the end of the season, going into the playoffs. A lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot of people. Some of my coworkers and I were talking about Broderick Martin because I was mentioning that we need a D tackle. We talk about the edge, which we do need, but we also need a D tackle. We need a D tackle who can actually help push the interior of the offensive line. That's how you stop those running quarterbacks from having those gaps. A D line that we call a two gapper. There are people who think that Broderick Martin could be that guy, 6'5, 330, but he was hurt all season and we didn't get to see him play. As for the other edge, James Houston to me is too small to develop into the other edge. He's 225 pounds. He's really more the size of an outside linebacker. I want to keep James Houston, but I think he is more of a situational edge or defensive end unless he can get a little bit bigger. He's definitely fast enough unless he can get big enough. So I'm going to go with a C plus, and that is definitely one of the areas that we need to improve on in the off season. Let's move on to the linebackers. What's your thoughts and what's your grade?
Uh oh geez, this is a hard one. Dang, yeah, I should do my research on this. Okay, I'd have to give him a C plus, and really, I'm just doing that off the eye test. I mean, like I said before, I really wanted to see more of Jack Campbell, but if I'm not wrong, Derek Barnes did have 3 interceptions, so I mean that is pretty good for a linebacker. And I guess Alex Anzalone made a pretty big upgrade as well. I mean, Malcolm Rodriguez didn't have nearly as hot as a year as he did last year, but he still is decent. So it'd be nice to see more of Jack Campbell, and I would honestly give him about a C plus. So I would just give the rest of them about a C plus. I mean, Alex Anzalone might be at a B minus or something, and maybe Derek Barnes too, because I like Alex Anzalone. He had a pretty big upgrade this season, in my opinion, at least in pass coverage, from what I noticed.
He did. I'm going to actually give the linebackers a solid B. I'm right there at about 84, 85%. I think Alex Anzalone he's been solid for us these last few years. Derek Barnes is coming along. I like the fact that Aaron Glenn used Derek Barnes in rushing situations more because when he was at Purdue, he was pretty good and strong coming off the end. So I'm glad to see them use him in blitzes to get to the quarterback. Of course, my man Reeves Maven. He's a fill-in linebacker, and he did a good job there. Rodriguez fell off a little bit, but he's still solid. And I know a lot of people have been hard on Jack Campbell, but I think that Jack Campbell is getting there. I just think that it took him a minute to get used to the speed, but I think he's coming along. All right, let's go to the DBs. We're gonna start first with the corners. What's your thoughts?
Oh, okay. That's not including the safeties. Oh, geez.
No, I'm not including the safeties. And I didn't put Brian Branch here because I know he's a nickel, but I put him with the safeties.
Okay.
So just with the guys you see on the screen, what's your thoughts?
I I guess I'd give him a C, a low C, like just barely not a C minus. I mean, because Cam Sutton wasn't. Oh, sorry, Cam Sutton wasn't too bad, but geez, as the season progressed, we started to see his incapabilities, I guess, because I'm not surprised because he's like 5'11" or maybe shorter than that. But as he went against bigger receivers, he was just getting cooked. I mean, I guess you can kind of understand Justin Jefferson, but then it's CeeDee Lamb, and then it's Mike Evans. Well, Yeah, I'm pretty sure Mike Evans had a decent game. And then it's Brandon Ayuk. So yeah, I mean, and Cam Sutton was really the only legitimate corner that we had. No offense to Jerry Jacobs, but I mean, they phased him out kind of. So
Right.
um and then Khalil or Kendall Vildor. Um, I mean, he's not bad, but the truth is, he should have caught that interception. I mean, when I saw the replay when Coach Big 30 did that video, I realized actually how bad it was. Like he really should have caught that ball, but it's fine though. But I mean, he was decent though, so that's why I'd probably have to give him a C.
Okay. I'm going C minus. I'm
Okay,
going
yeah,
C minus with the corners. Cam Sutton did look very good the first half of the season. He looked like the guy that we took from the Steelers and thought that he would be. But as the year went on, I felt that he stayed every time somebody ran an out route, he was always stumbling. He was always slow to react. And there was just not another corner to help complement him. Now, we know that football is an ultimate team game. We know that also, too, part of the reason why our corners struggle, let's be honest, is because there's not a lot of pass rush. You have to be able to get to the quarterback and make him uncomfortable to help your DBs out. But still, our boys have to go after a solid number one corner, a guy who can be on the island by himself, Darrell Revis style, by himself and cover a receiver without needing help. So I'm going to give our corners a C minus. So let's wrap up the show with the safeties. What was your thoughts on the safeties?
I'm gonna lean towards an A. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm gonna give the safeties an A. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like we low key. I mean, the safeties are pretty young for the most part. I don't think Tracy Walker is too. I mean, I don't know how old Tracy Walker is. I don't think he's.
27, 28, somewhere
Yeah,
around there.
and I mean, all of these corners could probably start for another team, and I think they could take over a team as well. I think we need to bring back C.J. Gardner Johnson, and we didn't see him in many games, but I mean, from that first game, I could tell that he was going to be pretty good. And Brian Branch showed out. I would give him an A grade himself. He should have been a Rookie of the Year candidate. And Kirby Joseph, um, he had led the yeah, he had 4 interceptions as well, so he continued being a ball hawk, and I don't at first, I kinda thought he fell off a little bit from last season, but no, he didn't. He started to turn it back on as the season went on too. So, I would have to give him an
Okay.
A grade. We really just have to get the corners better.
Yeah, believe it or not, son, we're thinking alike. I'm going A minus for the safeties. Because I'm counting Brian Branch as a safety. He's a nickel, but we know that he can play safety, and he did a pretty good job at corner. Kirby Joseph. Sorry, Kirby. I think I had a misprint on your name. Kirby
Yeah.
Joseph had a good second season. I think we do need to bring back CJ Gardner Johnson. And unfortunately, I think that Tracy Walker is as big a fans as we are of Tracy Walker. I think that he may be the odd man out because Melifonwu did a very good job every time he came in the game. And it's kind of hard for me to think that they can keep all 4 of those guys at safety: Johnson, Joseph, Melifonwu, and Walker. But I think that if someone is on the way out, it would probably be Walker because towards the end of the season, excuse me, Walker was more injury prone this season. And he looked like he may have missed a step. Now, it could have to do with the injuries, but that's my ultimate thought on that. But I do think that the safeties did a pretty good job. We just got to tighten up those front 4 and the corners. All right, son, we're getting close to hitting our 25-minute mark. Did we forget anything?
No, I don't think so. Hopefully, when is free agency open?
That's a good question.
Well,
I
actually,
am
we'll have to
actually
make a
not.
show about the combine. We'll probably talk about that. We can
Yeah,
probably
yeah. I
talk
think
about
the
the DBs.
combine is next week. I want to say.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, maybe free agency starts like March 1st or something like that. We need to check into it. But you and I'll find something to talk about next week about our Lions. All right, Lions fans, thank you for joining us. You see our TikTok right there on the page. If you haven't already, go over there and give us a follow. You see our Twitter at the bottom of the page. Give us a follow there. And this video will be up on our YouTube. If you haven't already, give us a subscribe and a like. Well, son, since we didn't forget anything, that's another show in the books. That's all we got. Peace.
Peace.